Now, before we did that, we actually did some safety testing on ourselves, or effectiveness testing. It was literally like the Pepsi challenge. There'd be two circuits behind a box, and we would change a variable between them, and we'd hook it up to our forearms. Because basically, you can't shock yourself into a fibrillation, ventricular fibrillation from your arm. And so we would shock ourselves. We were drinking Jack Daniels, listening to Guns N' Roses, and it'd be like, okay, which was worse, A or B? We did that for about one afternoon, and like, this is not scalable. So then we realized we had to pivot, and we started doing some animal testing with pigs. So anesthetized pigs that wouldn't feel anything. And really, the test that put the company on the map cost us $2,500. It was one pig. Dr. Stratbucker also happened to be a pig farmer. His family lived on a farm. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's like such coincidences. And so he hired a veterinarian, and we did this one test where we built a test rig. And the one thing about like foundational science in some cases is the answer is so glaringly obvious. From that one pig, we could see, well, if we just tune up the capacitance basically to about 4 times the output, we could see these massive contractions of the muscles on a pig that's anesthetized. So you could perform surgery, it wouldn't feel anything. So once we realized, okay, that's the effect we're going for, we tuned it up and down a bit. We then went to University of Missouri to repeat it, animal cardiac safety studies. We paid Dr. Stratbucker to compare the output to published electrical safety standards. Then we went into human testing. I was one of the first, along with others. And today we're far more rigorous. We have a lot more resources. So everything we do now, we have extensive medical testing across all the key variables. Early on, I think history has proven we were right. Based on the scientific literature, we have a pretty big safety margin below the level that'd be dangerous for the heart. But, the New York Times came after us pretty hard saying we didn't do a large quantity of medical testing. And that's true. Although over time, I think it's borne out that, in fact, the theory was right. We had a pretty big safety margin.
You mentioned you have more resources. I think about $2 billion in revenue per year, or is it?
We are heading towards 3. We're between 2 and 3 billion now.
And then I didn't check the market cap this morning. It was somewhere around 40 billion when I was.
I think we're around. We've peaked up around 60.
Okay.
I think we might be around 50. We're a bit volatile.
Okay. and so how have tasers changed over? What is the state of the art? Like, what are the knobs that we're still turning on tasers these days?
Okay, so the thing that is kind of magical, the thing that we developed in 1999, is the core sort of operating system for a less lethal weapon. That is, if I can hook up 2 points connected to your body 12 inches apart, we have a 99.9% effectiveness rate. It is immediately effective, and down you go. Now, the problem we have is people out in the real world don't stand still unless you put electrodes on them. And so the first 2 generations of the taser, so between 2000 and 2010, were all a single shock device. So it's sort of like a muzzle loader.
Okay.
So our big Achilles heel, and we got to hit you with 2 projectiles. And they would come out at an angle and spread. So a little complex to get 2 darts on somebody, get it through the clothing, make sure they both hit, make sure you're not too close where the darts are too close together, you're too far where the bottom one misses. And so that was kind of the state of the art. Then around 2010, we started getting up to a 2 and 3 shot weapon. The 3 shot was so big, customers refused to carry it. Literally, we had to cancel and shut that platform down. It's called the X3. And then we get through the 2010s, and then most recently in 2023, we pivoted. So the original taser I told you was a firearm. To avoid that, in all the modern era, we engineered in a compressed air cylinder.
So instead of gunpowder, you had nitrogen.
We had gunpowder and nitrogen.
Okay.
So we literally took the same explosive that could launch the darts, and we inserted a gas cylinder in front of it, and then that was filled with compressed air. And when you fired the explosive, it would push the cylinder onto a pin, release the air, and the air, or CO2, or actually nitrogen in our case, would launch the darts. So we were engineering around the federal firearm laws. And we tried to make a 3-shot, but just the physics of everything was too big. And so I remember going to our board saying, look, if we are going to begin to become a true alternative, we need more shots. Cops don't carry Derringer 2-shot devices. They carry Glock with a spare magazine with 30 rounds or more. And we had devised a plan that said, look, we get rid of all the extra compressed air stuff. And if we lower the voltage down below 1,000 volts, we can reduce the size of all the components. And we could get to a 10-shot system. But it would require that we accept becoming a firearm. And because of the long history, that was anathema. It was one of these sacred cow issues. And I remember saying, well, look, like cops buy guns, police agencies buy guns. If we have to be regulated as a firearm company, so be it. Now, you can imagine by then, we were already in 2023, like a probably $10, $20 billion company. A lot of our valuation comes from tech. We run huge software platforms in the cloud and sensors and all this other stuff. And so our board was rightfully concerned, like, hey, are we going to be valued like Smith & Wesson instead of, a tech company?
Right.
But this is where I think kind of having a North Star that for us, it was like, look, this is what it takes. We have no other path to actually start to challenge the effectiveness of a firearm. So we're going to have to become one. And so we did. And so our newest weapon, Taser 10, so long-winded answer to your question. So it's now 10 shots. You have to get 2 out of 10 on target.
So it fires 10 at once, or you can pull the trigger 10
You pull the trigger 10 times.
Okay.
Now, another thing, this was really interesting.
And you have to connect 2.
You have to hit 2.
Okay.
And we have, so the big thing we have to train police officers is you always have to fire at least 2. Once it's go time, it's 1, 2. But you pick your locations. Whereas historically we'd shoot 2 darts at once. It turns out that's sort of like trying to shoot 2 free throws at once. It's hard because he's moving, I'm moving. I've got an angle between these darts. It's a lot of complexity.
Yeah.
And when we asked our customers what they thought about the idea of 1 dart per trigger pull, actually they hated the idea. They said, no, it's got to be 2. It's always been 2. But we built a prototype to test. And this was one of the really interesting things I've seen in my career. You can ask people about an idea. They'll tell you it's a terrible idea. But until they experience it, you can't really believe because they just don't know. And so I remember we put 10 cops through a training session and they all got to fire this prototype. And they said, wow, this is so much easier to use. I'm not like doing angles and trying to figure out what the person is. I can just pick my 2 locations and I go pop, pop, and it works. So, and now we train them in VR where we can put them through a bunch of repetitive training skills. And so with 10 shots, with good training and a 45-foot range, we believe we have the potential to be up in the 99% plus effectiveness rate. We have one remaining hurdle, and that's heavy clothing, because we have to get a contact to the body. And so this winter, we are beginning testing what we're calling the Apollo dart. We ourselves pay this homage to the moon landing. Our moonshots to cut gun deaths in policing in half. And so the Apollo dart is our new dart system that is designed to penetrate through heavy clothing very reliably. It's actually easy to get through clothing. The hard thing is to get through heavy clothing and stop before it penetrates too deep.
Like you said, you still have to hit the scale. I feel like, I don't pay attention when I'm watching these videos. I feel like I always see, I'm like on Instagram or something and somebody's getting tased. I don't know. I seem to find myself.
Yeah.
I don't know what this says about me, but, and I've never paid attention. I mean, you're talking about heavy clothing. Can it hit like a t-shirt and still work or?
Okay. So I'm going to talk about the older tech.
Yeah.
So historically we would use high voltage, like 50,000 volts, but low current. And the reason we use the high voltage is like when you walk across the carpet in some parts of the country, you get a static shock. That can be 40, 50,000 volts itself. The voltage allows you to get electrons, to get a lot of like electromotive force behind them. It's like the pressure pushing an electric flow, and it'll jump across an air gap. And so that was originally done back in the 70s. We did it as well. And it would allow you to get the darts close, and then the electricity could jump an air gap. It could jump into the body. But it turns out it's not super reliable because the dart has to be pretty close. If it hangs more than like 3/4 of an inch away, the circuit breaks and it can be just sort of not super reliable. And so when we designed this new weapon, we said, look, we got to be reliable. We can't rely on this like sometimes works if it arcs through clothing. So we're just going to punch through and just get a direct connection. And even with our previous systems, so we have this small, it looks like a fish hook on the front. And about 65, 70% of the time it already penetrates. And then about 35% of the time it gets stuck in the clothing. The new dart that we're launching that's going to the field now has a tungsten core, which is something they use in, like armor penetrating rounds because it's very dense. And that tungsten core can just slice right through clothing. It'll go through, we have about a 7-inch leash. It'll go through 7 inches of clothing, which is a lot. The key is, and what we've spent years working on, is how do we get it to stop once it punctures in the skin? And the trick we figured out is when you go from sort of this fibrous, relatively dry clothing into the body, the thing that changes, you're now in this thick, wet, fluid environment. And we can use that as soon as it punches through the skin. We can force fluid to go certain places. It goes up the nose of this projectile, and it creates pressure that deploys a brake. And so it stops when it gets through the skin.
Okay.
It's really cool stuff.